So here we are in the garden of the European University Institute in Fiesole, close to Florence. It's a beautiful day. And we are at the end of a fantastic conference, Ellen, that you organized. And maybe the first question is, what was the conference about, and what is NORFACE, and what is the program that we've been discussing here?
NORFACE is a consortium of European research councils, and they fund different programs on specific topics. And the program we're here to talk about is Welfare State Futures. What is the outlook for the future of European welfare states? And we've had 60 principal investigators grouped into 15 large projects investigating issues of the welfare state for the last 3 years. And this was our final conference, where people presented results from their various projects.
Okay, wonderful. So, we're talking about the future of the welfare state. I'm sitting next to two academics, but one of you, Jet Bussemaker, you've been in politics also for a significant part of your life, dealing with welfare issues. Is there something you take away from this conference that you would say, I have to call up my friends in the Netherlands and tell them how to do policy?
Oh, that's a difficult question, because I have heard so many interesting things. But I think one of the remarkable conclusions I heard was that we have to tailor-make our policies much more. Yeah. And we are used to talk about universal welfare state arrangements, and of course we need them also to keep the middle class in there. But it's a challenge to make more tailor-made solutions for people who are coping with a lot of problems. Right. Sometimes it's healthcare, but also financial problems. Sometimes also problems with sexual abuse, etc. I think that's one of the challenges for the welfare state of the future, and also to stay in transition.
Right.
In the right way.
So that brings me to you, Eva. You're a professor of economics at Uppsala University, and so what do you think are sort of like the academic breakthroughs that we've been sort of listening to over the past 2 days?
Well, I think that one important takeaway is that increased ethnic diversity and increased migration doesn't necessarily mean that the support for the welfare state goes away. And I think if you go back a couple of years, that's probably what we thought. But I've listened to several papers here that found evidence that this is not actually the case, which I think is very promising for the future. So that's one important thing to take away, I think.
Right, okay. Thank you. It kind of brings me to sort of a round-up question, and that has to do with the following. I think, Jet and I and Ellen were the same age, so we've been growing up with books like The End of the Welfare State, The Demise of the Welfare State, The Crisis in the Welfare State, and, over and over again. And here, 30 years later, we are continue to talk about the welfare state and even its future. So how do you see that? We've been living through this era of welfare state, whatever, decline, and here we are discussing the same thing, or is it not the same thing?
Me?
To you all.
I think that what we know from these results, as well as previous ones, that the welfare state is a very successful social institution, and there may be need for revision, but these gloom and doom stories that it's going to inevitably collapse or that it's too expensive are widely exaggerated and not based on scientific findings. And here we've heard many scientific findings that show that many programs work. But I think this last point by Jet was very important, that this uniform solutions for everybody are not going to solve every problem. And so that we need to find tailor-made solutions. But the other thing I think was very interesting actually to hear from you was that people need to be given a voice, even though sometimes their ideas about the welfare state are not accurate. So we need to find a way to have some kind of dialogue with citizens that they can express their worries about injustices in welfare state, at the same time maybe that they can get more information about the facts. For example, that most migrants pay in more to the welfare state than they take out, and that's not a well-known fact.
So, I mean, as an ex-politician yet, I mean, how do you frame pride in the welfare state?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because I think I agree with you. The welfare state is here to stay, but will be in transition, will always be in transition. So for politicians and also policymakers, it's very important not to regard the welfare state as a technocratic process, but as also a value in itself. And a value, a very important value, I think, is pride. So we have to show more, I think, the effects of all the welfare state interventions, and we can be very positive about the effects of welfare solutions, and we have to start more a dialogue with citizens, not only to explain the technological aspects of policy itself, but about the reciprocity of the welfare states vis-à-vis the citizens.
Okay. So, going back to the academic, what is the frontier of welfare state research, the next 10 years?
Very difficult question, of course, but I think that one important thing is to take into account these new findings within behavioral economics. That when we design policies, we need to understand how people's limited abilities to understand different policy systems, the limited ability to commit self-control, to kind of make the right decision for themselves. We need to take these things into account when discussing welfare states. And I think within public economics, we are already beginning to do that, but we have a lot to learn.
Okay. So, Ellen, last question to you. I mean, where is Welfare State Futures NORFACE program? Where is it going to sort of, what is the next step for it?
Well, our financing is officially ending at the end of August, but the network still exists, and so everyone very much hopes that the researchers will stay in touch with one another, and that the next phase of research could be projects that link together findings and methods developed in these individual projects that would be more cross-cutting. So I think that's the next step.
Okay. Thanks so much for this nice interview in the beautiful garden of the European University Institute. Thank you.